Welcome into this Monday edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham, Neal, McCready, Clark Ford Studio here with you. Today, it is the beginning of SEC Media Days. Greg Sankey going to the podium, I think 10:30 Central Time for that today to kick it off. And then one Lane Kiffin, along with Ole Miss players, in the main room around 1:30 today Central Time for that one. Jonathan Mingo, Cedric Johnson, and Nick Broker also in attendance for the Rebels. Talk a little media day. Obviously, tomorrow for tomorrow's show, we will react and discuss anything that comes out of Sankey, Kiffin, Drinkwitz is today. Who else is today?
LSU.
Brian Kelly and his players today as well. So we'll talk about that. The not unsurprising, but the Major League Baseball draft not kind to Ole Miss last night. Jackson Ferris, the left-hander, out going to the Cubs at 47, and then Roman Anthony, the one that really was more of the coin flip, he gets drafted by the Boston Red Sox at 79. Red Sox and Blue Jays, the two teams that were on him the hardest, and Boston does take Roman Anthony. I expect him to sign after getting picked there last night at 79. So we'll hit a little more of that. Also, some surprises. Cade Horton going earlier than thought, the Oklahoma right-hander that really shut down Ole Miss for a while in the National Championship Series, and then Kumar Rocker, number 3 overall last night as well. So that and more coming up on today's show. A show brought to you every single day by the Oxford Exxon, Highway 6 West in Oxford. Download the Exxon mobile app. Take advantage of that, including take a picture of the QR code right there at the pump. Take a picture, opens up the app, 1,000 bonus points, $10 straight to you with the Oxford Exxon and all Blue Sky locations in Mississippi here locally. Lunch specials, $5.69, 2 sides bread, 32-ounce drinks, and more. And again, coming to you from the Clark Ford Studio.
We are Clark Ford's, excuse me, it's going to be a struggle today. Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900 is that number. Call it, ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. Right to the bottom line, no hassle, no haggle. You get your quote. The rest completely up to you. You can shop that quote around. You can do what I've done, what I recommend that you do, and that's hop into a Clark Ford today. 662-257-1900. Guest will join on the Rafters Music and Food hotline. Rafters Music and Food on the Square in Oxford. Great place to grab a burger, a po' boy, an appetizer, full bar, great beer selection, and more. Also, Rafters New Albany, and then starting again on Wednesday, Rafters on the Water. If you're spending part of your weekend out at Sardis, stop by Rafters on the Water, grab a frozen margarita or a beer, burger, whatnot, and make that a part of your weekend at Sardis.
So, yeah, as I said, Sankey getting started around 10:30, something like that, and then LSU, Brian Kelly going in the main room at 11:35 Central. Ole Miss again 1:30, and then Missouri at 2:55 is their start time. Again, all Central times there, so don't get confused. Atlanta, obviously, a time zone ahead. So check the listings when you're trying to find something. Tomorrow, Alabama, Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. Wednesday, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, and Kentucky, and then wrapping it up on Thursday, Auburn, Tennessee, and Jimbo and Texas A&M there at the end. So that's it.
Leif asked a really good question.
Okay.
What's the biggest thing to ever actually come out of media days? He says the freeze firing, but the freeze firing was just a rumor. Well, obviously, it wasn't just a rumor.
He showed up that day. It
was actually of all of his Ole Miss appearances, it was his best one.
Yeah. We were in that side room or whatever. Wherever that was.
Yeah. And he actually made it to, I guess he made it a week after media days. What day of the week was it that he was fired?
It's a Thursday night.
So
right?
he made it a week. Yeah. Because freeze went on Thursday.
Did he? I don't remember that.
Yeah, because I was there the whole week.
What did we hear that day? The
Thursday.
It was started on Monday. We had heard it was the Mars stuff had kind of come out. I guess Steve's involvement to some extent had surfaced, or at least we had heard through some back channels of that. We were certainly aware of derogatory phone calls that would impact him negatively at that point.
We were aware of the rumblings of them.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
We didn't.
They were not concrete in nature.
In fact, the people at Ole Miss denied it on Tuesday.
On Tuesday, that's right.
And then on Wednesday, the tone changed because I didn't go to the Winfrey on that Wednesday. Instead, I went back to my hotel and started working.
Right.
And, I mean, I was talking to the late Edward Ashoff, God rest his soul, Andy Staples. I mean, my phone started ringing, people like that. And that was my antenna was way up. I actually thought on that Wednesday that either he wasn't going to make it to Thursday or that he wouldn't come. Because I talked to someone late Wednesday night who said,
that's right.
You know, he said, and I quote, "We're concerned this is going to be another Laramie Tunsil." And I said, well, then why in the hell would you bring him if you're concerned it's going to be another Laramie Tunsil? And it was, well, I mean, what are we going to do? We can't stop him from coming.
They had Hugh. Now, they went outside to get the help, but they had Hugh very prepared for any question he could face that day. He was very prepared.
And he really did not get quizzed that day.
He did not.
For two reasons. One, no one really knew anything yet. And two, those of us who kind of knew something didn't want to do everybody else's dirty work. Like, I wasn't going to dig in with Hugh Freeze that day in a media scrum with 20 people. Where
definitely not doing it in the main ballroom.
No, God, no. No, that would be shitty.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to do it in that room because that was back in the day where everybody held up a phone, you know, like just filming everything. And I'm just giving you, those people are throwing that up on YouTube faster than I can get out of the room. I'm just doing your work for you at that point. And I wasn't going to do that. And I wasn't the only person. There were some other people that were there. And then once it just didn't come up that day, you couldn't, I mean, it came up and he had a decent canned answer. And then nothing happened the rest of the day.
Yeah.
You couldn't help but think, well, maybe this isn't what people are saying. And then, dude, it went stone cold quiet. Now, some of that was because, again, there's no bigger myth than this is like the SEC, all their logo stuff today is kickoff. No, we're nowhere close to kickoff. The truth is most everybody's going back on vacation middle of this week, into this week, and there's another full week of off time. And I think because a lot of people disappeared, we all thought, well, it was gone. Like, I went on vacation and kind of kept my phone on me and kept waiting for it to ring, and it didn't ring that weekend. And I thought, well, maybe it's kind of blown over. Maybe they worked it out. Maybe it wasn't as bad as they thought it was. And then somewhat out of the blue, it broke. The other story that came out of media days was last year, the Texas-Oklahoma thing. And looking back on it, that's the reason Ross Bjork was in Birmingham. There's no other reason. No other ADs ever. I've covered media days for 8 gazillion years.
Mm-hmm. Because he was just hanging out.
Because, I mean, I look in this camera and, God, I look old. You know what I mean? And I mean, I'm like, I've covered this for a long time. I've never seen an AD just hang out at media days. Never. Not from a successful program, not from an embattled program. And I remember walking down there. It was on Wednesday that afternoon. Because Ole Miss had gone on Tuesday last year, I think. And I was leaving. And Ross was down there. And I was hanging out with Ross and Richard Cross and Clark Lee, the Vanderbilt coach, was down there. And 10 minutes later, it broke.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking Ross was here because he knew that media was going to be there and Ross had something to say and he was going to make it easy for them to talk to him. Because Jimbo,
I'm standing here.
Because Jimbo wasn't going to say anything.
And he was at the podium at the time, right? Wasn't Jimbo actually on the podium?
He was either at the podium or was very close to it. Yeah.
No, look, actual news, it's always for years been Destin, not Hoover or Atlanta or wherever they decide to put this thing every year. Now, Destin was a big nothing burger this year too, but this is a Super Bowl press conference more thing where you're going to get some coach saying something dumb and you're going to hear about, was it Robbie Caldwell and his turkey insemination when he was the Vanderbilt guy and all that stuff, or Clay Travis asking Tim Tebow about his virginity. You're going to get some crap like that, but you're not going to get You're not going to get hard news out of this. Like anybody going into this going, hey, we're going to hear about the schedule this week. No, you're not. You're not going to hear about the schedule this week. They're not going to make a decision on that. Nothing's going to come from that standpoint. It's going to let every coach have a couple talking points, filibuster like crazy is where it's kind of become now. A lot of them will have 15, 17, 20-minute opening statements. I think Les Miles used to be adept at. And then you're going to have some hyper-focused questions on football, and that is going to be what Media Days is. Guys like Lane will get asked tons of big-picture questions, probably answer them but have no real answers because there are no real answers right now. Nobody knows what's coming in any of this because that's the underlying theme of college football right now too. Is that there isn't an answer.
There's
no answer,
and most of the coaches truly aren't all that involved in that stuff. I mean, not really. None of the SEC coaches are. I mean, they're all fine. No one's getting kicked out of the league. No. I keep getting asked that question: who's going to get kicked out? Nobody.
No.
Nobody's getting kicked out.
Vanderbilt would be the closest to having some sort of breach of contract, and I've heard zero about Vanderbilt actually being in trouble.
I've literally never had one person who was remotely connected to anyone in power at the SEC who has said that there's anything more than just frustration at Vanderbilt. But frustration in the sense of, I wish my kid would focus a little bit. I wish my kid would study a little harder. That's completely different than I'm about to disown my kid.
Yeah, sure.
Ole Miss is not, Ole Miss, SEC is not unhappy enough with Vanderbilt to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the league is perfectly fine. I mean, the other people that people talk about are like, well, they'll kick out Missouri, or they'll kick out Arkansas, or they'll kick out Mississippi State. No, they're not. That's insanity. No, not even close. And so all these people are pretty good to go. Truthfully, if you want to do the expansion story, if you really want to do the expansion story, the only people that you can really talk to are people at ESPN,
mm-hmm.
at Fox, and the commissioners.
That's it.
I could go ask Lane Kiffin some big picture question about expansion, and Lane could give me a 40-minute soliloquy on it that might be entertaining, and it might be interesting, and it might even be in parts off the wall. It would never be pertinent at all because he would be guessing just as much as
mm-hmm.
the cat on the corner of South Lamar and wherever.
Yeah. At best, he would tell you what he thinks. Okay.
Yeah. He could lend some perspective, having been at USC, having been at, in the SEC for a long time now. He could do that, perhaps. But that's about it. He has no idea what's really going on behind the scenes.
What do you think Sankey wants to get out today? Anything? He's got a message on him?
No, because the media cycle has been so intense over the course of the offseason that I think Sankey has said what he wanted to say.
It's why all this is desensitized, too. You don't need Greg Sankey in Birmingham or Atlanta with a mic in front of his face. He's had a mic in front of his face weekly since the season ended.
Yeah, well, look, Greg Sankey said all that needed to be said when he said that about, we keep coming out here. I think to Dallas is where here was.
It was.
We keep coming out here and we keep having these conversations and we keep hitting the same concrete wall. And okay, here's the truth. I think we should expand. I'm paraphrasing incredibly.
Yeah, sure.
I think we should expand. I think we should expand the playoff to 12 teams. It's probably, best for the sport. But if you're going to stubbornly insist that we stick with 4, that's fine. We'll keep putting 2 in the 4, and we'll probably win it every year. And okay, we're fine. That's essentially what he said. And so now, he's not going to sit up there and gloat. He's not going to say, well, this Pac-12 thing probably wouldn't have happened if they'd gone to 12. That's not who he is. He's way too diplomatic for that. He's going to get some questions about NIL, and he's going to
pseudo-dodge them.
Dodge them to a degree. He's going to talk about how this is still a new thing and that they're still, we're still adjusting to a new terrain, if you will. That'll come up. He's going to get asked about the TV deal, and he's going to dodge it because he's not going to say, "Yeah, we're keeping an eye on what's going on with the Fox and the Big Ten, and we're going to try to top it." He'll probably talk about some streaming stuff moving forward. He'll probably get asked some questions about like Apple TV and Amazon that might actually be interesting. He'll dodge them. He's not going to go into details. Like they already handled the whole Jimbo Saban spat in Destin. I mean, the truth is there's probably not going to be a whole hell of a lot that comes out of this. I'd be surprised. I mean, watch it break that the ACC just folded on Tuesday morning, but I mean, I don't foresee that. I'll tell you this: the people that I've talked to who are kind of informed with the league, I think they have giggled at some of the wild media speculation about this expansion to 24 teams and stuff like that. One person just said that's news to ESPN.
24 will never make sense because there aren't 24 that can create enough money to make it worth anyone's while.
There might not be 20.
Well, look, there's no guarantee, even from the standpoint of anything past 16. There's no real guarantee. I was reading Pete Thamel about it this morning, talking about what's the Pac-12 going to do, what's the ACC going to do, all those kind of things. And there's the number of schools that actually can create more than their share to make it worth anyone's while is basically over for the most part.
You got Notre Dame.
Outside of Notre Dame.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, but that's it. One. And then if you say, okay, give me another one that guarantees ESPN or Fox another share. Guarantees it.
Mm-mm.
Well, you get into some maybes.
Oh, there are maybes.
Maybe North Carolina. Maybe. Maybe Oregon.
We can have a discussion on Oregon.
After that, you start reaching a little. You could have a conversation about Washington.
At its peak, Clemson counts.
About Clemson. You could probably have a conversation about Duke. What does Duke look like in a post-Mike Krzyzewski basketball world where basketball has become essentially a 6-week sport?
Like I say, basketball is not pushing the dial even enough to have the conversation, though.
No, I've never once, not one time in all of this expansion talk, heard anyone mention any sport not named football.
Yes, this has not been about basketball in the absolute slightest.
I've never heard anyone mention basketball. I've never heard anyone mention baseball. I've never heard anyone mention Olympic sports.
No.
It has always been about football.
Yes.
And so what does Duke bring to the football table? Nothing.
Nothing.
And so you start talking about who brings something to the football table. It's Notre Dame, obviously. And then it's probably next is probably Oregon. And then it's maybe North Carolina because of how big of a market that is. And then, man, it's a real stretch after that. Possibly Clemson. But when you start talking about possibly, ESPN
and historically, North Carolina's been average. They're not pushing more than their share.
Right. I don't mean on the field. It's because what does that bring? ESPN's looking at this going, okay, so if we have North Carolina in our inventory.
Yeah, sure.
North Carolina versus Alabama, what does that do for us? North Carolina versus Georgia, what does that do for us from an eyeball standpoint? North Carolina versus Ole Miss, those kinds of games. And they have to think about that. So we get North Carolina, LSU. Does that do enough for us to justify adding them?
Because here's the thing. You're going to get an SEC game anyway. Right. So is North Carolina, Georgia more valuable than just, hey, let's just have Georgia play Oklahoma again? We'll just do that more often. Cool. All right, sweet.
Yeah, the question is, does North Carolina LSU do anything more than Mississippi State LSU?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is no, not really.
Yeah, me too.
Now, does Notre Dame? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they're the one exception that's a yes.
Notre Dame's ESPN goes, absolutely sign us up. Because Notre Dame LSU, Notre Dame, Tennessee, you're moving dials now.
Yeah, sure. Podcast brought to you in part by Prime Shrimp, primeshrimp.com. Thanks to everyone who took advantage of the new customer 50% offer last week. You can still get $20 off your first order with code MPW. When you want to use that, we told you about all the 5 different flavors they have. They also have their raw, peel, tell-off IQF shrimp. It's just like what you get in the grocery store, except the farming practices are better. Coming straight from New Orleans. You get 2-pound bags of that shipped straight to your door as well. It's great for marinating and grilling and sauteing and doing all the things you would with the shrimp you would pick up otherwise at the supermarket. So whether it's one of those or the 5 flavors available to you straight from freezer to plate in less than 10 minutes, shipped to your door. It's Prime Shrimp, primeshrimp.com, code MPW.
Brought to you by MyPerfectFranchise.net. If you're looking to diversify, you're looking to leave the corporate rat race to gain control of your income and schedule, MyPerfectFranchise.net offers the ability to create income and wealth. Let Andy Ludecki guide you through a comprehensive franchise evaluation. He has tons of franchise and business ownership experience to lean on. If you hate your job, you hate your boss, you hate your pay, if you feel stuck, Andy can help. It's Andy at MyPerfectFranchise.net. We're brought to you by Solutions RX. It's a probiotic multivitamin and supplement company created by Ole Miss pharmacy alum Chris Cornelison. It's pharmaceutical grade, manufactured right here inside the U.S. under the highest standards. If you take diabetes, high blood pressure medicine, or cholesterol medications, they typically cause side effects like muscle pain, brain fog, and energy loss due to a depletion of minerals and vitamins in the body. But Chris formulated a product called Prescription Support to put those vitamins back into your body to help with those side effects, helping you stay more compliant. It's solutionsrx.com. Type in the promo code OEP at checkout to get 10% off your first order. We're brought to you by Holcomb Portable Buildings, 7991 Highway 7 South in Holcomb, Mississippi. They custom build your building to your specifications, however you want your carport, ATV, or storage shed, barn, hunting cabin, or other buildings. Holcomb Portable Buildings can accommodate you. All you do is get in touch with them. You pick the color, the style, the windows, the doors. They make it happen. In-house financing is available. Free delivery and set up within 75 miles of Holcomb as well. For more information, call 662-226-2233 or check out them on Facebook or Instagram at Holcomb Portable Buildings. Father's Day is almost upon us. Dead Soxy is the perfect. I'm sorry, I had a Ron Burgundy moment there. It's deadsoxy.com. I've got to update that. Deadsoxy.com. Go to promo code Rebel Grove at deadsoxy.com. Get 25% off your entire order of the best socks you'll ever put on your feet. Game Changer patches, the only 2-patch system in the market that's available to stop hangovers before they start. The warm-up patch used before or while you drink. The overtime patch used after you've been drinking to recover while you sleep. The all-natural ingredients will keep you in the game, ready for the next play. GameChangerPatch.com. Promo code RebelGrove20 at checkout. And we're brought to you by ACS, Automation and Control Systems, LLC. It's a complete electrical control system solution provider and a Rockwell Automation Recognized System Integrator. To learn more about ACS, just go to acsllcms.com or call 662-601-4381.
Podcast is brought to you by Community Mortgage, Oxford, Memphis, Soto County, and Chattanooga. All underwriting and processing is done in Memphis. So you're getting local underwriting and understands your market. Leader in condo financing, the float down option, and more. You can find Jason at 662-234-2704 or JLOE at communitymtg.com. Let's see. There it is. Yeah, so you didn't really question mark at least, so you're fine.
Right. Repeat the line.
So that's it. I mean, we'll see. I mean, you probably can interpret through some of Lane's answers today and get at least how he feels about some different positions or things. But even that is going to be reading through some nothingness.
He hates those questions.
So Lane, you got 2 quarterbacks. Tell me about that. Where are you kind of sitting with that right now? They're really competing. I haven't seen them this summer.
We don't have one yet. So who's going to be his answer? He actually will probably go more negative on stuff like that today. That's my prediction.
Really?
Yeah.
He
will downplay expectations. Because frankly, Lane is in danger territory right now from a perception standpoint. Because I keep seeing these people putting Ole Miss second in the West. And I'm not saying Ole Miss can't finish second in the West. Because they absolutely can. But Ole Miss could finish 5th in the West. So you have to, when you're in that boat, you've got to, slow your roll. We got to replace a lot of people. We're going to hear about how good Matt Corral was, how good Sam Williams was, all pertinent points. How they got some question marks.
Sure.
Still working on things.
Sure.
Someone will cue him up probably with, I won't say the question will be planted, but I won't be surprised if the question is planted about NIL and stuff because Lane likes that topic. And that's how he gets a lot of national. Lane likes to get national headlines. He's not going to get national headlines talking about his linebacker room. He's going to get national headlines talking about NIL and the transfer portal and the cost of NIL and how NIL has basically become pay for play. I'm waiting for a
things
coach.
He's already said 1,000 times.
But I'm waiting for a coach to just come out and say, can we stop calling this NIL? Can we stop it? Because this is not NIL. I'm for the players getting paid, but let's call it what it is. This is pay for play. And so when you get into pay for play, and again, I'm putting myself in the shoes of a coach. When you talk about pay for play, well, now you have to talk about this becoming a professional sport. And in professional sports that work, there are salary caps. In professional sports that work, there are luxury tax things. There are things that can be done to de-incentivize overspending. The Yankees can spend all that they want to. But if the Yankees go spend $500 million, they pay another $200 and some odd million in tax. And at some point, ownership goes, whoa.
Sure.
What college football is becoming is what would happen if the Yankees didn't have a tax. If the Yankees were like, screw it. We don't have to worry about slot, over slot, under slot. We don't have to worry about salary caps. We've got $800 million for salary. Let's do it. And Tampa's got $40 million. And, hey, we're going to kick their ass just by sheer money. No punishment. I'm waiting for a coach to say that. NIL was supposed to be name, image, and likeness. It was supposed to be that deal where a kid like Matt Corral, let's use him last year, when every little kid running around Vaught Hemingway Stadium was wearing a number 2 jersey, we could get past they all just like the number 2. That's the fun number this year. That's the hot number for kids. No, they're wearing a Matt Corral jersey. So let Matt Corral get a cut of those sales. Sure. That's what name, image, likeness was supposed to be. So that when you played the video game and the quarterback that played for Ole Miss, the little animated quarterback, gosh, he sure looks like Matt Corral. Sure plays like Matt Corral. Do you think it's possible that maybe that is Matt Corral? Matt Corral might be able to get his cut of every time someone bought EA Sports 2022, whatever. That's what it was supposed to be. Name, image, likeness was supposed to be for the Mason Brooks show. Mason comes on. He does a show with us every week. It's brought to you by The Rogue, right? And he gets money for that because he's using his name, his image, his likeness. But now it's just straight pay for play. And I'm waiting for a coach to say that. We're not offering NIL, guys. We're offering salary.
Crime with a question that is relevant. He says, then the question of has pay-per-play been around in college football or is this new? USC and others have been able to give kids more, so why weren't they in the past? Simply because of the NCAA rules. It's increased the price. It has made things more expensive.
Because you've taken away the quote criminal end quote element.
It has normalized it for more people to get involved on higher levels, and frankly to start competing publicly. That hey, no, I'm the big that's doing this, and I'm doing. Again,
mine's bigger than yours.
It takes certain type of person. Because look, there's the other side of this too. There's a lot of people who still would rather give on the table and go, I do not want to publicly be seen doing this crap.
Yes.
So it plays both sides. But no, it has not changed the power dynamic as far as different programs or anything like that. It has different programs, but a different number of programs being at the top.
Yeah.
However, it has changed the price, it has changed the value, and it has even created less parity than it was before because of that. No, pay-for-play has always been here. Yes, it's not new.
But you're the businessman in Houston who's a Texas A&M guy, okay? Sure. Or a Texas guy or an Oklahoma guy, whatever. I don't want to pick on Texas A&M here today because, frankly, they've not done anything wrong.
No.
At the end of the day, Jimbo's right when he goes, we haven't broken any laws. He's essentially right. It's the NIL pay-for-play thing. But back to my point, if you're the businessman in Houston in the past, if you got caught giving $100,000 to a Texas A&M player, it was a scandal.
Sure.
That rocked the Houston Chronicle to its core and impacted your business. Now it's, okay, you really love the Aggies, huh? Cool. And there's a big difference in that. Are you going to, quote, commit a crime if the punishment is maybe a few people go, man, really? As opposed to, your business shuts down and you get a black eye on your name and your family. And there's a big difference. A big difference. A really, really big difference.
We're allowing, I talked about this months ago, you got the guy at Florida, you got the guy at Miami. You're normalizing and bringing some of the more shady figures of college football recruiting to the forefront to honestly give them power in your program now too, which is a different level of, we mentioned back when we had this conversation the first time, we mentioned, Shapiro at Miami and people. Well, today those people are celebrated because they're the ones pushing to this extent to be able to do these things, and it is completely being normalized. You got the guy at Florida that's raised the $22 million or whatever it was that The Athletic wrote the big preview or profile on a couple months ago, where the power dynamic changing is what is fascinating to me. Is the level to which the people who used to be quietly in some control now are publicly celebrated. And that's a weird, interesting move as we go through this. And it's, look, I get why a coach would have to say there is this going on. Not that I'm personally doing it, obviously, but it's what's doing it. It's and here's the deal: it's not just in football; it's in everything. I mean, baseball is doing this now.
Sure.
I mean, look at LSU's class. That wasn't by freaking accident.
Right.
I mean, this is
they invested in it. Yeah, of course.
Whatever matters to you. Whatever matters to your fan base, you can push this in. If there's a school out there that goes, by God, we want to win at women's golf, you can go win at women's golf right now.
But that's a really good example, baseball, for example. At LSU even, and baseball's always been important there. But if you gave $50,000 to help get the shortstop.
This wasn't a thing.
But if it were and you got caught, it was you were the guy that brought down the program.
Yeah.
Now it's, hey, man, appreciate you helping out with that shortstop.
Yeah.
That dude's good. Well, it's totally changed. Now, what is the shortstop doing for that $50,000? A couple of tweets?
Yeah, nobody's real sure about that.
As people go, well, I mean, like someone in the thread said, influencers. Yeah, cool. I mean, look, I'm not criticizing.
Because that's the problem. When this thing was supposed to get started, there was supposed to be this almost committee that kind of did market value. Good job.
Right.
It's impossible. There's no market to have value of yet.
But when it's a football player that's got like a high school kid who's got like 2,600 followers, there's no way that you can intelligently look at that and go, oh, yeah, that's going to have the same influence as the supermodel with 4.2 million followers.
The gymnast from LSU, Olivia Dunn.
Who says, hey, try this makeup removal system that I do.
Sure.
Here's my makeup routine. And and that company, Revlon or whoever the hell, they're going to see the impact from that. Because every 16 and 17-year-old girl that sees that is going to go out and buy that makeup. I'm not sure that the football player that's the high school signee actually moves the needle.
I don't know that I just don't know that the market's settling because it's just getting more. I know it's only been a year, but
it's not yet.
Prices are up 2 to 3 times off when this thing first started. What was 100 is now is 3. What was 150 is now 450.
To put it in Ole Miss parlance for a minute, the question with Ole Miss that if I could have a sit down with Lane Kiffin, this is where I would go. And I wouldn't want to do it in front of 50 people, and I sure as hell wouldn't want to do it in front of a ballroom. But the question I would, and I'll never get this, but the question I would have is, you intelligently, probably ahead of your time, figured out at Ole Miss last year the way to go was the transfer portal. But to your point, Chase, what a year ago cost $50,000 to get done, is now going to cost $200,000 to get done. In the transfer portal, there's a lot of, okay, well, that guy got this, I want that. There's very little, well, he plays more value. No, it's the transfer portal. And so you have kids in the transfer portal now that are pretty smart about it. They're sort of shopping around a little bit. They're not jumping right away. They're kind of shopping around. And so if the price has gone up 300%, 400%, excuse me, I'm sorry, how many of those guys can you afford? And when you have kind of built your rebuild around the transfer portal, at some point do you have to pivot because of the shift in the market?
And there are obviously exceptions in the middle, but what's happening, and this is football, this is basketball, this is baseball, this is every sport. What is happening a lot of times is that kids are one of two. They either have picked out their location and where they're transferring before they ever get into the portal, and they know exactly where they're going, and that's going to be the decision, and they sort of almost work to make sure everything's fair and legal and all that. Not fair, but legal and whatever. Or you got the kid that goes, hey, just pay me. Whoever's paying the officer sounds good.
Sure.
Well, you either have to get on the very front end of tampering and be as illegal as anybody else in the country, or you got to have a really big pocketbook.
Yep.
Again, there is a middle, but I don't know, 70% of the kids, something like that.
Sure.
And that's probably a little low. Something like that.
Because a lot of these kids are looking at this like, I'm going someplace for 1 year. I'm not going to build emotional ties in a year. I really don't.
Pay me and get me to the league.
Yeah, I really don't give a damn. So pay me and get me to the league.
And it's happened with football. I mean, between NIL and draft, it's probably going on somewhat with this kid from Long Beach State in baseball who's about to choose his school. Where he goes, hey, what's my opportunity to pitch for a year that I can go pro? Cool. And you're going to pay me some. Cool. Hey, sweet.
Yeah, because the programs are all the same.
Yeah. The dirtbags can't match that at Long Beach.
Of course not.
So they sit there and go, yeah, have a good time.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
So, he's looking at one thing. Who's going to pay me the most?
Yeah. He's down to Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Oklahoma State.
So whoever bids the highest will get him.
Yeah.
All three of those teams.
They're all going to win. And
they're all going to win. They're all going to have fans at their games. And he doesn't care about that anyway.
It'll all look huge to him. He plays at Long Beach.
Yeah, I mean, he's, whatever. What is truly at the end of the day, what's the difference between being the Saturday starter at Ole Miss or the Saturday starter at Oklahoma State? I mean, really, what's the difference?
Yeah. Scouts will find you.
Yeah, they're going to be at Big 12 and SEC games.
Yeah.
If you pitch in one of those two leagues, they're going to see you. Truth is, if you pitch it
anywhere,
Kennesaw Valley, A&M, they're going to see you. But if you pitch in one of those two leagues, it doesn't matter whether you're at Missouri or LSU. If you pitch in the SEC, they're going to see you.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes down to money. And you're only going to be there, like you're getting there, at this point, getting there in August, and you're leaving in June. So you're going to be there for 9 to 10 months. How much emotional attachment are you truly going to build in one of those places in 9 to 10 months? Not much. So you're making a professional decision. And again, it's not NIL. It's pay for play. Here is $300,000 or whatever to come pitch for my team.
Yeah, I mean, it's to go full circle with that, LSU in baseball decided it was incredibly worth it to spend an amount of money that would be a game-changing recruiting situation. Something that would not happen prior to the portal and NIL. I guess NIL, they're not technically related, even though they are. So sure, 100%. I mean, so Lane will, I guess, not to get crazy off topic, yeah, they will get some of those thoughts. They'll get some of those questions. There'll be no real answers. There'll be some opinions here or there, but it's nothingness.
He's going to get quarterback questions that, I'm not sure he knows the answer, and if he does, he's not going to say it out loud right now. He's not going to say, let's just say Luke Altmaier is his quarterback and he knows it.
Sure.
Okay? He knows it. He's not going to say that. You don't want Jackson Dart to go, screw it, man, I got to get out of here.
Split reps in Atlanta, in your opinion, yes or no? Third week of the year.
Yeah.
You think they're still splitting?
That's probably the last week. Because look, if they're not 4-0 come October the 1st, something went terribly wrong, and all of this hype that we're doing, we were wrong. The first game on the schedule is October the 1st.
Yeah.
And by then, I think you need to have your quarterback.
They get a month to do whatever. I mean, they're not going to go to Atlanta and lose. So
I mean, again, if they do, something beyond the quarterback position is bad wrong.
Yeah.
I won't be the guy that goes, there's no chance they lose. I mean, do I think they're going to lose at Georgia Tech? No, I don't.
Troy, FCS, Georgia Tech, and Tulsa. They're going to win those games.
Troy, Central Arkansas, Georgia Tech, and Tulsa, they should be 4-0.
Yeah.
And then it gets real because you get Kentucky and then you get Vanderbilt.
Maybe. And
then after that, it gets real. I mean, unless you are one of these people that's doing the Auburn thing, and I refuse to do it. I will not do it. I don't care. I'm just going to tell you now, if Ole Miss is 6-0 and just looking like a rolling ball of butcher knives, I'm not going to write up the Auburn game as a W because Ole Miss doesn't beat Auburn very often. And until that changes, I'm not going to go, that's a sure thing. But then after that, it's at LSU, at Texas A&M, Alabama at home.
Ding, ding.
At Arkansas, Mississippi State at home. I mean, there's the second half of the schedule is not the same as the first half of the schedule.
No.
So he's got some time to figure it out, which is back to the point, July the 18th, is he going to name a starter today? I mean, I would be stunned, like flabbergasted, if Lane Kiffin said to the media today, yeah, Jackson Dart will be our starter. Yeah, Luke Altmaier will be the starter.
Yeah.
No, they're going to have competition in camp, and I think that's a true answer. I mean, I'm sure they have a sense as to who might be the starter, but let's say that you went into camp going, I think it's going to be Luke, and then 10 days in, Dart's making all the throws and Luke isn't. Well, you pivot at that point.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't like last year where Matt Corral was the quarterback, and the only way Matt Corral wouldn't be the quarterback is if something physically happened to Matt Corral.
Yeah. Let's talk a little baseball draft here in a second after this break. Podcast brought to you in part by Johnston Hill Creamery, johnstonhillcreamery.com. We're one day away from Tasting Tuesdays. It's 11 to 3 all through June, all through July, and August. They have one house cheese, one house condiment available to sample one day here a week, and it's on Tuesdays. Come back each week. Try the new options. That's on White Oak Lane, just off Molly Bar in Oxford. You also can get their lunch menu. I see where they're making their homemade cannolis right now for this week as well. And they make all their cheeses locally and in-house every single day right here in Oxford. That's 662-419-9201, or check out their Instagram page at Johnston Hill Creamery.
Brought to you by Lammons Fine Jewelry, 1126 North Lamar Boulevard in Oxford. Been serving the Oxford area for 3/4 of a century. Whatever your jewelry needs are, engagement rings, wedding rings, watches, pearls, whatever, they've got it. It's the gold standard in fine jewelry. Visit them at lammonsfinejewelry.com or call them at 662-234-2777. It's still very hot outside. If a massive heat wave actually is supposed to come through here in the next couple of weeks, if your air conditioning unit is sputtering, get in touch with the people at Comer Heating and Air, Southern Air Conditioning and Heating. Different names, but it's the same great products, the same great services. If you live in Oxford, Tupelo, or the surrounding area, call Comer, 662-801-1777. If you're in Memphis, Hernando, that area, get in touch with Southern, 662-429-4429. We're brought to you by the College Corner. It's your one-stop Rebel Shop, 2 locations in the Jackson area. In Ridgeland, it's next to Fleet Feet. In Flowood, it's next to Half Shell. If you don't live in Jackson, it's okay. Go to collegecornerstore.com. Plus, you can find them on Facebook and Instagram with the largest selection of Rebel gear in Central Mississippi. Brought to you by Pinnacle based in Madison, Mississippi. They've got clients in more than 20 states, advisors in multiple states. They provide detailed, specialized investment management, financial planning, retirement planning for individuals and businesses, and much more. It's mypinwealth.com, mypinn.wealth.com. John Edwards of Regency Travel Incorporated is the guy to get in touch with if you want to make a special trip, one that creates a lifetime of unique memories. Just get in touch with him, give him some parameters, give him a budget. He's going to give you options you won't find on your own. 901-494-3387 or jedwards@regencytravel.net. And we're brought to you by Opa, Oxford's newest restaurant on the square. Gyros, wraps, kebabs, redfish, lamb chops, handcrafted cocktails. Man, I'm sorry. Frozen libations, amazing candlelit patio, and more. 306 South Lamar, just south of the Square Courthouse in Oxford.
Podcast is also brought to you by G&M Pharmacy, 662-236-2222. They deliver locally in the Oxford area, and they offer MedSync to fill your prescriptions the same day each month and take care of you. One trip to the pharmacy, one delivery. Everything you need when you need it with G&M. Also with their med packs, they'll individually package your medication for that extra step. Maybe it's help with a parent or a loved one to make sure they have everything they need when they need it. Morning pouch, evening pouch, and so on. So again, in Oxford, that's on South Lamar, 662-236-2222. As I mentioned in the opening, Ole Miss, not surprising, but didn't get much help last night in the Major League Baseball draft. Again, Jackson Ferris, the left-hander, throws very, very, very hard. He was not going to show up anyway. He did not even sign up for summer school. He had done nothing to indicate his arrival at Ole Miss. I know he went lower than his slot number is, but anyone peddling to you today does not understand the process whatsoever, and I've seen a little of that. Jackson Ferris going to sign a professional contract.
There's a lot of
it's two. It's that and a no, Ole Miss, you just got and then it's a complete not understanding. Baseball's draft is it's not complicated, but you do have to understand it. And if you don't understand it, it's very easy to not get what's happening.
So a team has a slot value Every pick has a slot value.
Every team has a pool of their top 10 picks.
But if let's say you take a kid, Joe Johnson, in the second round, and the slot value on that pick is 1.2. Okay?
Yep.
Whatever. I'm just throwing numbers out.
Sure.
If you don't get him signed, you don't get to take that 1.2 and use it elsewhere. It's just gone for a year.
That's correct.
So if you're taking a kid in the second round, you've communicated with that kid and his representation and said, here's what we can do. Would that do it?
And they'll bump him a little over his number.
And if the answer is not in the affirmative, you're probably taking someone else.
Yes. Today, well, I'll explain that in a second. Anyway, Jackson Ferris, 47 of the Cubs, he will sign. And then I thought they had a chance to escape on Roman Anthony, the outfielder out of Stone Douglas High School. The Red Sox, the Blue Jays were all over him. The Red Sox passed on him at 41. I thought maybe Blue Jays had passed on him later on too, and then the Red Sox with their third pick, the end of the day, the end of the comp, round 2, pick 79. They did take him. He will get somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million is kind of what I'm hearing on that. His slot is below that, but that is they saved money with their first pick and then took a guy with their second pick that actually is going to need some oversigned too. So I don't know. They're going to be a candidate here, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round guy. I hope he gets paid, but Tim Elko, you take him in like the 8th round where you literally can give Tim $5,000, save $100,000 and throw that on somebody else because Tim has no option. If he wants to play professional baseball, that is his best offer is to take the $5,000 or $10,000. So if you do that in 2 or 3, 4 rounds, well, suddenly you've accumulated $250,000, $300,000, $350,000 to show out in other places at that point. So you have a lot of that as well. There'll be some guys picked today. You go, wow, he was taken in the top 10 rounds. Yeah, but he was handed like a Snickers bar because they're
literally the slot value will be $150,000 and he'll get 10.
Yes.
And for the team,
they're manipulating their entire bank. Of course,
they're taking a $140,000 surplus, and that kid in the second round that is asking for more than slot, well, suddenly he has it.
Yes, that's
how it works.
So today is somewhat of a big day.
MLB draft coverage is tough for fanboys. It really is. It's a very difficult thing for the fanboys. They can't take their goggles off. And they get exposed in the draft. It's one of the things I actually kind of like about the MLB draft is that it exposes the fanboys.
Today, rounds 3 through 10, 11 through 20 tomorrow. I would expect you'll see a good many Ole Miss guys come off the board today. DeLucia, Dunhurst, Graham, Bench, Elko. I think all those are very prime candidates to get drafted at some point during these 7 rounds today. DeLucia would be the one to watch. I expect him to sign. I expect him to get drafted, probably get somewhere in the neighborhood of a $300,000 signing bonus. It's just kind of a educated guess.
I get where the temptation would be for him to come back.
Because coming back, I don't think he loses any money. Because unless he gets hurt, he's going to get the same thing next year for the most part.
Right.
Because he technically has 2 years left. He wanted to use it. He would get the same thing next year, give or take. Ole Miss could get him some NIL money, which probably would be in the 6 figures. He'd be closer to graduating, all that kind of stuff, if that matters. Where it's a longer term deal, but you're probably not really actually out any revenue. But at some point, he turns 22. If you're going to pitch, go pitch.
That's the thing. You want to play professionally. Here's a club that's going to take you, and they're going to invest in you. And at some point, if you want, I wrote this on the message board yesterday. If you want to play professionally, at some point you have to start playing professionally. And what's he going to achieve? I mean,
he was the MVP of the College World Series.
I mean, I guess he could go dominate the SEC and all
be
that.
An ace the whole year and all that stuff.
But I don't know that he can really improve his stock. Although Kumar Rocker says hello, but we'll get to that in a minute. I don't know how much you can improve your stock coming back if your stuff is kind of the same. If you still are the same guy, you're
still a right-hander, 91 to 93.
I mean, you are projecting you're probably still the same guy a year from now that you are now. And so if a team takes you in the 4th round today, for example, your probably smart move is to get into their organization and get your career started.
That's Josh Holliday's kid that went first.
Yeah.
Andrew Jones kid going second or something like that.
Boy, some of the comps with him are just out of sight. The one that actually looks the same is he and Fernando Tatis Jr. have a lot of similarities.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I love Drew Jones. I'm just going to tell you that.
You're in.
Totally. And the Holiday kid is going to be a great player. It's pretty obvious.
An OSU commit.
Yeah, I mean.
Don't like their chances.
I mean, I'm sure his dad's, in one hand, slightly disappointed that he's not going to get to coach his son because that kid would make his team a lot better. But on the other hand, I suspect that the money that he'll get with the number 1 pick slot will assuage a lot of those wounds. He'll feel much better.
It's gonna make things okay.
It's going to be okay. It's Matt Holliday's kid, yeah, not.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Totally different kind of player than his dad. But.
Yeah, that's right.
So what did you think of Kumar going third? Because there was this shock that happened. Right before it happened, I was kind of on Twitter. I'd just gotten home, and I was catching up a little bit on social media after being in the air all day. And this buzz came out that Rocker was going to go much higher than people anticipated. Boy, if you're the New York Mets medical people, you don't ever cheer for someone to be a complete disaster.
But you're running into the baseball version of the Dolphins with Drew Brees going.
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah. Because if Kumar Rocker goes to Texas.
And they're going to get him discounted. The rumors are he's going to take about $2 million below slot.
Yeah.
Slot for his pick is 7.587. So 5.5-ish.
Right. And they've got $2 million to play with now with the rest of their draft, which makes them
that's a bank.
They're showing up with.
Yeah.
They're
carrying it around right
carrying
now.
The
You get Rocker at a $2 million deficit and he's healthy. Suddenly, you won the draft.
But now, if he's not healthy, you lost the draft because it's the third pick in the draft.
Sure.
So they must feel he's healthy. They must be comfortable with his medicals. They must be. Otherwise, it makes no sense.
It's a big kid. It's a violent delivery. He's good now. He can be damn good.
Let's not underplay how good he was at Vanderbilt.
I mean,
dude was dominant. The
right kind of jerk on the mound. I mean, he gets all the intangibles are there.
Checks every single box. Smart kid, confident kid, big time arm.
They get to do the big PR thing, pair him back up with Leiter and all that stuff.
Sure. Checks lots of boxes. I just wonder what the Mets must have thought yesterday. And supposedly, the Rangers were not the only team that was itching to go there. Because I'd heard
3.
I'd heard some Cubs buzz, which is probably why I was a little disappointed.
At 7?
I was kind of a little disappointed with the way the Cubs draft played out.
Horton's all right. You're good.
He's fine.
Horton
felt like a real reach to me at 7. I'm just going to.
He was like 20. Well, you're talking about a kid who's only been throwing a breaking ball because of Tommy John the way he has for like 3 months. I mean, you could run the risk of it being the big fastball kid. Now, look, Slaughter was a damn hammer against Ole Miss.
It was. He's got a lot of depth on that slider from that arm slot.
And analytically, it looks really good.
You don't see it a lot. So if you're a hitter, that's not the arm slot that you see depth of a slider in that spot. But he didn't have but a handful of games. And I know there were big games in the NCAA and in the College World Series final. He pitched really well against Ole Miss on that Saturday or Sunday, whatever that was. I get it. But 7th, with some of those guys behind him that were available, it just kind of felt like a reach.
Where'd you want him to go at that point?
Well, there were all those infielders that were bats that I was kind of hoping they'd jump on one of those guys. Or I was hoping they would take the Parada kid that ended up going to the Mets. I'm scared of the big arm right there at 7. Unless it's a super proven arm.
Well, there are some clubs that go, no, we're gonna draft bats and fielders, and we're gonna trade for arms. I mean, there is that thing because the arms are rentals in a lot of ways. So go get the bats, go get the players, get the everyday guys, and then figure the arms out.
In many ways, the pitchers have become kind of like running backs. You just take a bunch of them and you figure it out. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I have nothing against the kid. I hope it works out. I think what's happened with me, and I said this on the board yesterday, I realized that I've begun to lose faith in the Cubs. I'm not sure that I trust the people who are making decisions anymore.
Jacob Berry goes number 6 overall to the Marlins, the LSU
I would have
third baseman.
I would have liked for him to have fallen one more spot.
Given that option.
Yeah. Like Jacob Berry, the path for him to the bigs is pretty easy to pick out.
Jace Young from Texas Tech feels like he's been in college baseball for a decade. He goes 12 with the Tigers. Suzak, the catcher out of Arizona, went pretty high, 19, 20, somewhere in there. I've seen a good bit of him because of Ole Miss here in the past. Yeah, it's 19 to the Athletics is where he went. I think is going to be a thorn in your side if you do get back into your Cubs fandom is the Cardinals, I think, had a hell of a pick at 22 with Cooper Jerpy out of Oregon State.
Oh, sure.
That kid's going to be a stud. I love that kid.
They could take me and turn me into something. That's just the way they...
It was the underrated thing of the postseason that didn't get talked about. And now look, Ole Miss, I mean, call it destiny, whatever, and they have their ring. Auburn beating Oregon State and not making you have to deal with Jerpy that first day in Omaha. A critical path along the road there for Ole Miss was avoiding him. So yeah, he's quite good. I like him.
Winning a championship requires luck. Absolutely requires luck. Just does. No matter what, you have to have some luck.
Saw a stat that out of the first 18 college kids taken, 9 of them were committed to LSU or Vanderbilt. Something like that.
Whew.
Yeah, they were rocked. From a draft standpoint, both those programs were rocked. Now, they expected to be rocked, which is why they had so much portal room, scholarships and different things, even some NIL that these guys would have gotten too. But
yeah, Tim Corbin's been down this road a time or two. He
knew he was about to get.
Now, the Corbin rumor that's interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Okay.
Is Tim Corbin going to Texas? Going to the major leagues?
The major leagues doesn't feel right. But there is a ton of buzz that he sees what's coming from a scholarship standpoint, getting out of Nashville. That's been really prevalent over the course of the last few months. A lot of people believe that is. There's a lot of people that do not believe Tim Corbin is still going to be the Vanderbilt coach in 2024.
Yeah. Just something to keep an eye on.
Because if it evens out, they're not going to suck, but it's not the current situation.
Something to keep an eye on. I think his days in Nashville are numbered.
Had a run.
No, he's had a hell of a run.
He can find a gig. It's going to be all right. Landon Sims, the state pitcher who had Tommy John, went 34 overall to the Diamondbacks. Jordan Beck for Tennessee, 38. Drew Gilbert went pretty high, too. I think the Astros, somewhere in the 20s.
Yeah, what was interesting was a couple of the UCL guys still got their paydays.
Yeah.
Sims, Paulette.
Hunter Barco.
Yeah. Tells you what Major League Baseball thinks of that injury.
Oklahoma, Jake Bennett goes 45 overall to the Nationals. So the two guys that Ole Miss faced go 7 and 45 in the draft from the Sooners. Connor Prelup, 48 to the Twins. Interested about Prelup. I want to see, get him healthy. We finally maybe get to see what he has. It's somebody who was supposed to come in and anchor that Alabama rotation for 3 years.
Another one.
And change Brad Bohannon's career, frankly. And
it shows you MLB is not remotely concerned with that injury.
No. Caden Wallace from Arkansas goes 49 to the Royals. Peyton Graham, the shortstop.
That was an interesting pick to me, the Royals going with him, because obviously Dayton Moore had seen him play a lot with his son playing on that team. So it tells you how much they valued him. To me, and I've said this all year, Caden Wallace as a Major League Baseball player, I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar or anything like that, but that dude's going to be a productive MLB player for a long time. You just don't see guys with that big of a body as athletic as he is very often.
Yeah. Peyton Graham, 51 to the Tigers, the shortstop from Oklahoma who had the big critical error and didn't play very well at all against Ole Miss. Blake Tidwell, pitcher from Tennessee, 52 to the Mets. State's catcher, Logan Tanner, went 55 to the Reds. You mentioned Paulette. They go 62 to the White Sox. Judd Fabian, talk about a fall. A guy who was a potential 1-1 a year ago, 67 now went to the Orioles. The Orioles got a shot there to get a big steal at 67. But,
sure. Well, they've done really well with developing college players.
Yeah, and then Bob Moore, Arkansas, 72 to the Brewers. Had a tough year, got a little better there toward the end.
Yeah.
Picked it up a little.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Some other SC guys, but
I don't know that he's a major league player. He's a very good defensive player, maybe borderline elite defensive player. I just don't know that he has the bat.
That bat is streaky at best, and
got a lot of the other tools. I mean, obviously knows how to play the game, all that stuff. But boy, that bat was pretty inconsistent last year.
Yeah. Podcast brought to you in part by Northeast Spark. 2 packages, the Ignite, the 100 Mbps, or the Blaze, the 1 gig that powers the Clark Ford Studio. Your hometown team bringing you world-class broadband. That's nespark.com, 662-238-3159. Phone service, parental controls, network security, and much more. So, again, give their office a call. Get the best internet in Lafayette County. Again, that's 662-238-3159.
I'll have a mailbag up on Wednesday. It's brought to you by Whitney McNutt of Tommy Morgan Incorporated Realtors, serving you for all your real estate needs in Oxford and Tupelo. She sells condos, land, commercial, and residential family homes. You can reach her at 662-567-2573 or 662-842-3844. Brought to you by Service Specialist Staffing and Recruiting Agency. They've been connecting great job opportunities to candidates since 1967. If you're on the job hunt, they can help you. Obviously, it's always free for the candidate. All conversations are going to be kept confidential, so you got nothing to lose by giving them a call. And if your company is looking to hire quality, hard to find talent, they can help you there as well. Keep in mind that payment of service is solely contingent on if you decide to hire a candidate that they send. You've got nothing to lose, so give Will, Sydney, or Kelsey a call at 662-832-5138. Check out their new and improved website, servicespecialistltd.com. I mentioned the Rogue earlier in the show. It's your place for fine men's clothing. They've got all the best items from Peter Millar, Martin Dingman, Jack Victor, Halsey, True Grit, and more. 4450 I-55 North in Jackson or therogue.com. And don't just accept what you see, but imagine something new. Step forward, chase after a better version of yourself. Every day, Corinth Dental is helping people reinvent themselves one smile at a time. Dr. Bubba McQueen, Dr. Jenny Beth Hendrick are devoted to restoring and enhancing the natural beauty of your smile using conservative, state-of-the-art procedures, including Invisalign. These clear aligners are the virtually invisible way to improve your smile. So call Corinth Dental today for a no-cost digital scan of your teeth. Let them show you the way to a straighter, healthier smile. 12 months, no interest, no down payment financing available at corinthdental.com. And we're brought to you by Southern Traditions Farm. It's a 68-acre, 32-stall, upscale equestrian training and boarding facility in Canton, Mississippi. 2 sand rings, a grass ring, miles of wooded trails. There's a lot to be offered at Southern Traditions. Horseback riding offerings from beginner lessons with trainer Susan Walt to buying your first horse and competing at nationally recognized competitions. Get in touch with Bowers Cone, Susan Walt, the people there at Southern Traditions to learn more. It's Bowers Cone 1, the number 1, at gmail.com, or message them on Facebook or Instagram at Southern Traditions Farm.
Kind of a fun story on ESPN.com of the 10 rules that Pete Alonso tries to take into the home run derby as he attempts to win it a third time. As a kid, that was fun.
Yeah, it's still fun to watch. What you worry about with some of those guys is that they screw their swing up.
Hey, that's mentioned to stick. Don't do something that causes an issue at some point.
I remember one year Sosa was in that, and he wasn't the same for like 3 weeks. Really? Just got all jacked out. Yeah, just, a swing is a very refined thing. And you mess with it, and sometimes it's hard to get it back. I would not want, if I'm a major league front office, I really don't want a lot of my guys in that deal. As much as it's good pub and people like to watch it.
I don't remember what channel they were on. I guess it was MLB Network, watching the old timers in that black and white TV show, the Home Run Derby TV show back in the day. They did it from Wrigley or wherever they did it.
Wrigley Field out in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and it was if you've never seen it, it's a cool. Go find it on YouTube somewhere. And because you're talking about Mays and Mantle and those guys
Ernie
having
Banks
their own,
and Hank Aaron and all those guys. Yeah,
you're talking about having their Home Run Derby. It was pretty cool. I found myself this morning Not something I typically did. I was a coworker. I agreed with Mike Farrell.
I did too.
On this Caleb Williams thing.
Yeah.
It's blowing up over the internet. A bunch of USC homers trying to take exception to what Farrell did. Farrell now with his own shop. I don't know what it's called, but whatever. Caleb Williams knew he was going to USC from the moment that Lincoln Riley took the job or before. He was not considering staying in Oklahoma. He was waiting for anything to run out so he did not get accused of tampering with Oklahoma and USC fighting each other over tampering with Lincoln Riley is what it was. I know this because, Ole Miss tried to get involved. A lot of schools tried to get involved. Auburn, Wisconsin, on down the road.
Sure.
Farrell, and I'll pull it up. I've got the actual what spurred all this. Mike Farrell, obviously the former head of recruiting for Rivals. Caleb Williams' dad says OU fans drove his son away. It's how it started. Farrell says, this is beyond ridiculous. Kid was gone, and entering the portal and not expecting OU to get another quarterback is laughable. He's correct.
He's right.
Williams' dad's quote, we didn't know what we were going to do, and honestly, when we went to the portal, Oklahoma was at the top of the list, but they did some things that weren't in his best interest. No, they didn't. No, Oklahoma did nothing that was against his interest. You were not going. You were trying to hide the fact still that tampering was so prevalent inside that situation.
If you wanted to stay at Oklahoma, you would have gone to Oklahoma quietly and said, hey, we need to put some NIL stuff together, which they were doing anyway.
Yes.
And, hey, I'm going to be your quarterback. I'm your guy. And Oklahoma would not have gone and signed Dylan Gabriel.
Yes.
They wouldn't have gone after Jackson Dart or any of the people that they went after. They objective one for Oklahoma in the post Lincoln Riley days was to satisfy and satiate Caleb Williams.
Yes.
And only when Oklahoma found out that they couldn't did they go, okay, well, we have to have a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb
comes back, says, want to take this down. The fans and my old teammates are the reason why I almost stayed. No, it wasn't. Shut up. And then Mike comes back, says, more than happy to have you and your dad on, shares a side, blah, blah, blah. And then Caleb says he's not doing one of his stupid high school interviews. We're not going to drive up your views talking about the past and something that isn't true. I'm the one that made the decision. And I have my reasons on why, talking about, quote, more than happy to have you. Trust me, I know you would. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
but
you're not exactly portraying yourself as all that decent of a fellow, and plus your grammar sucks. You can't hear the grammar and when Chase reads it, but
yeah, I think I was correcting it for your own clarity while I'm talking. No, look. Here's the thing. If anything,
one guy comes across professional there.
Yeah, if anything, he's hurting his own self when it comes to actual business situations and possibilities. There's no reason to be discussing this right here. None. You play for USC. Go play for USC.
This is this entitlement that I have grown to detest. You're not entitled to be the guy who goes, well, this is my version of the truth, and therefore it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't work like that, Caleb. You get to dispute it if you want. That's great. And as much as I think you and I would both love to kind of get our kicks and giggles with Farrell being wrong, everything Mike wrote is exactly what everyone I know has heard.
Yeah, no, he did nothing wrong.
He's right. And, there is this entitlement that comes with, no, I'm not going to talk to you about whatever your high school show or whatever. Okay, great. He invited you on, you declined. Fair enough. But then you take the shot at him because you want to dismiss his reputation. And in this case, you're wrong.
Farrell wrote about it this morning. It's the problem in general. He was talking about that, hey, look, he having some hot takes to get some publicity, sure. But I don't know that any of them are necessarily wrong. He talks about this. He talked about, he said that given his history in high school football recruiting and scouting, that he thinks Arch Manning would be a high 3-star without his name. Right, wrong, and different. Mike has credibility in that arena to have that opinion.
Sure.
Whatever.
Sure.
He talked about how the OC at Texas is on the hot seat. And he said every time you do this, what has become so prevalent is that the fan bases say you hate the person and the school. You no longer have an opinion that's just separate. It's you hate the person.
Yes.
We no longer can have just discourse that is calm and reasonable and we move on with our day. And look, I mean, this is not for the last 5 minutes of a podcast because it goes, it's permeated through cable news. It's so many different things. I mean, there's plenty of reasons and life. My point is reasons. I mean, there's so many different reasons. But no, we have lost the ability in segments of society to simply disagree and move on and not think the other person is, quote, a bad person or have a differing opinion.
Sure.
We can't just chill the hell out.
No, it's bled into sports.
Yeah.
Big time. It's not just bled. It's like,
hey, that coach is on the hot seat. Why do you hate him? He's going to get fired if he doesn't win. I don't have a problem with him as a human. I mean,
of course. Mike Farrell isn't saying, I can't believe I'm sitting here defending Mike that much because Mike was, frankly, a pain in our ass for a while.
Yeah.
But, Mike's not the only person who thinks that about Arch Manning. I mean, he's got the courage, frankly, for being honest at this point. I don't think he would have done it if he were still working for Rivals. I don't think he would have said that because Rivals would have pushed back.
Yeah.
But he's working on his own, and he says, hey, this is what I think. Now, does that mean that he hates Arch Manning? Of course not. Like, I've never met Arch Manning. And if he has met him, he probably likes him fine. It's like when you and I would have a conversation about some, go back a few weeks when we thought a 7-14 baseball team was not going to make the tournament and that the coach was going to be terminated. Was that because we hated Mike Bianco?
Yeah.
No. It's because we thought the coach was going to get terminated.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing in our society today. Like, I am comfortable spending the last 5 or 10 minutes about this. It's a weird thing. People push back right away, and they come back and go, so you were out to get him. No, we weren't. I mean, we don't make that decision. We're not in that room. We're not the ones that look at the books. And if Mike Farrell ends up being wrong and Arch Manning is a 6-time NFL MVP, does that make Farrell some horrible guy? No, it just means he got one wrong. Look, you work in this business, you're going to get some wrong. But what's changed is this. It's an entitlement, and it's this vitriolic. It's a lot of anger.
And it's confirmation bias. We only search out what we agree with.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay in my bubble and only hear this tunnel vision. Tell me what I already think I know and tell me I'm right. And don't tell me anything else.
Yeah, and it's sides. What side are you on? Like, a lot of times I'm not on a side. I mean, I'm not on a side. I don't care. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I don't know how people have the emotional capacity to care about so many different things. Just have an opinion. If you're one of the people that's like, hey, I really think Kentucky's going to have this great season because I've talked to some NFL people and they really like Will Levis a lot. Well, Chase, that's a real thing. Now, is it possible that Will Levis is going to not achieve that expectation this year? Sure. But I can remember back in the day, I'll give you an example. I mean, I can remember back in the day when I would talk to NFL people who were like, I really like the Sowell kid for Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
Like his body, like the way he projects. And I remember telling people, hey, the NFL people think he's going to be an NFL player. I didn't say it. I've never played in the NFL. I've never coached in the NFL. I've never been in an NFL front office, and I've never scouted football once in my life. I'm a decent writer, and that's why I got this job. Had nothing to do with my ability to look at football players and go, oh, that one's going to be better than this one. I don't do all that. But people would fight back, and now it's even worse. Now these people, if you think that about Will Levis because you are a national guy and you talk to some NFL people and they tell you we really like this Levis kid. Because there are some NFL people, Chase, who think Will Levis is a better NFL quarterback than Bryce Young. And so if you project that with Kentucky, it's like Tyler Siskey said. No, it wasn't Tyler. Who was it? It was Ryan Brown last week on the podcast. And Ryan's right. If the NFL people are right and Will Levis is about to have this breakout season, well, then it's really hard to look at Kentucky and find a bunch of losses on their schedule because they've got this really good running back. They've got a very good defense. They're very good up front. If they get elite quarterback play, well, they're probably going to win a lot of games. But if they don't, every person who kind of said, hey, the NFL really likes Will Levis, they're not idiots. They just, hey, the NFL got one wrong. Because the NFL is going to get some wrong. Just like yesterday. I mean, I was watching MLB Network yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, the one kid who's kind of got his bat back or whatever, I can't think of who he is. He got drafted in the first round. Somebody compared him to Rod Carew, and then somebody else compared him to, Jason Kipnis, which I thought was more fair because like Rod Carew's like a Hall of Famer, and Jason Kipnis was just a good major league player. I say just a good major league player. I mean, come on. But I mean, not everybody's going to live up to the hype, and some will. Yesterday, I guarantee you,
there's an all-star taken in that
perennial all-star went in the first round yesterday.
Yeah,
and there also was someone taken in the first round yesterday who will never play in the major leagues.
Yeah. When we looked this up in 5 years ago, that guy.
Which means that there's some organization yesterday that their evaluation process was flawed.
Mm-hmm.
Missed. Happens. But we've created this deal where everyone has to. It was a bad look for Caleb Williams yesterday. It made him look super sensitive. It made him look kind of like the Hugh Freeze deal of I'm searching myself up on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
You're the quarterback at USC. This is an important year for you, for your professional future, and you're worried about what Mike Farrell says. Which also tells me that you have some regret. This isn't.
It leaked in.
Yeah, kind of leaked in that, hey, there's a part of me that wished I'd stayed at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I had a good deal at Oklahoma. I was beloved at Oklahoma. Now I got to go prove myself again.
Yeah.
At USC. And there's no guarantee that you're going to get it done at no guarantee you're going to get it done at there.
Right. Greg Sankey, 10:30, probably before most of you people or before you will get to this if you're not on our stream, because frankly it's over an hour and it starts in an hour. Lane Kiffin today. We'll discuss that tomorrow, as well as Brian Kelly, Elijah Drinkwitz, and then whatever comes up out of SEC Media Day. They're at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. We'll have coverage at rebelgrove.com. We'll be back with you in the morning with another podcast. Hope you have a great day. Take care, and we'll talk to you.